Hi, this is Greg Suddy on Soccer. I have got Chad Vandegriffe with me, kicking back at his home. This is a pretty busy guy. Yesterday, I was trying to get a hold of him, and he's doing his coaching duties and whatnot. Chad, welcome. Thanks for coming on this morning.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Love what you're doing with the league.
Right on, right on. Well, thank you. So, a couple of things I want to talk about first is your nickname. So I hear a bunch of people on the broadcasts. Everybody knows that you are cheese, but I don't think everybody knows why you are cheese. Can you sort of share a little bit of information about that to people?
Sure. Yeah. So, I have a handful of nicknames that different friends call me or groups of friends call me. I guess cheese is one of them that a few people call me, and honestly, it's just because I smile a lot. There's not some big explanation.
Well, it is a championship smile, my friend. I just got to tell you.
Appreciate that.
Okay, so yeah, it really truly is, man. And I got to tell you, man, that smile is also something that you radiate your personality and your charisma and persona as that kind of a guy that is approachable, easy to talk to, having a good time, enjoying his day, enjoying his life, and it really does come through in your smile. I just want to throw that out there. So let's talk a little bit about how things got started. And there's a really interesting connection that you and I have that you and I don't know that we have until just now. Watch this. Watch what I do here. So your birthday is the 24th of November, 1989 in St. Louis, Missouri, correct?
Correct.
All right. My birthday is December 4th, 1959. And I was working in St. Louis for TWA, the 29 years old, going on to my 30th birthday, the day you were born. So I was living in Woodson Terrace, right across
By the airport.
Right by the airport, working for TWA, and hanging out down at Laclede's Landing whenever I was having a good time. My favorite place was Muddy Waters. Is Muddy Waters still?
I don't know. I don't know if it still is. I actually haven't
Okay.
been to the Landing in a while, but I know it was a popular spot for a long time.
Yeah, that was my hangout. But so that's the 30 plus year connection that you and I never knew we even had, man. I'm hanging out there in St. Louis the day you were born, and I lived in St. Louis for about 5 years. Flying back and forth all over the country, all over the world, actually, because TWA was an international airline, and I was based in St. Louis, but I still lived in San Diego, and it was an interesting time for me because with all of the travel benefits that I had, I was able to travel around and follow the San Diego Sockers during that period of time on their road trips. I would get a hold of one of the players' wives that I knew, and they would give me the hotel that the boys were staying at, and I would find my way to that hotel and hang out with the guys and follow the team around, sort of like a junkie in a way, but that's just how it rolls. So when you grew up in the St. Louis area, you started high school at Chaminade College Preparatory School, and that was the high school that you attended. I'm going to run through a little bit and then have you talk about it, okay? You're going to school at Chaminade, and you are named team. You're the team captain. You're a 4-year letter winner, team captain, defensive player of the year. Along the way, you were part of the team when they won the Missouri Class 3 state championship. First all-team Midwest, first all-team All-State, first team All-Metro Catholic Conference, and oh, by the way, lettered in 2 other sports of baseball and basketball. Talk a little bit about your high school career.
Yeah, I grew up in a town called Florissant, about 30 minutes from Chaminade. So going there, I didn't know many people. It's a all boys prep school. 6 through 12. And I went there freshman year, not knowing too many people. A couple of my close friends who also played soccer went there as well from my club team and my grade school. So that made it a little easy, but the first year was a little difficult. But man, I really enjoyed it. And yeah, I played 3 sports there. I played baseball, basketball, soccer freshman year. Then sophomore year, I stopped playing basketball, and then I think my senior year I didn't play baseball. So I started with 3 sports, and then I slowly by senior year I was only playing soccer. But it's a great prep school. A lot of the academics are great, obviously, and the athletics are great.
Right.
And there's a lot of athletes that come out of there. So
it's funny that you say that because I've heard of it before. And I don't know where I've heard of it from, but the name and the location, and I'm sure it's the same school. I've heard of it before. How many people have heard of a high school, so to speak, from some other location in the country? What is it? I don't know why I've heard of it, but the name is familiar to me. And it's interesting that you say that this is a time when you were sort of trying to figure out what sport you were going to play. I mean, here you are, an athlete, and you're playing different sports. And during that period of time, you're figuring out and sort of narrowing it down that soccer is the way you're going to go. Why was that?
Yeah, I just think you have to keep your grades up. And I'm also playing club soccer as well. So, I mean, I was literally just running. So, as I looked at my ability and where I can go at the next level,
Right.
that being college, I just thought soccer was my best option, and to focus solely on that. But yeah, I was actually a pretty good baseball player. I was on varsity before I was soccer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that was a tough one to give up, but yeah, I just wanted to focus on soccer.
Before we get to the college period, let's talk a little bit about your playing club soccer. That was St. Louis Scott Gallagher Soccer Club, and you guys had state Missouri championships 3 times while you were there. So I mean, you're winning championships in high school, you're winning championships in club soccer. I mean, that's just outstanding stuff, man. Talk a little bit about when you were playing with your club.
Yeah, I guess back then it was, state, regionals, nationals, everyone kind of had the shot at those. It wasn't so many different individual leagues like club soccer is now. So winning those was special. And my teammates were all great players as well from all over different cities, counties, St. Louis area, even outside the St. Louis area. So that was special. And then, yeah, a lot of winning. And then I think the academy started, which is more of a traveling league. So that kind of took away from the state championships and things like that. Once I joined that, as far as club soccer, but and the high school was a big one as well.
Right. So
I even now, not everyone plays high school soccer. So I'm focused more just on the club, So everyone still played high school back then, so that made it special.
So after you got out of high school, you're gonna go to university. By the way, I don't know if you can see it, but in the chat, Kevin Curtin is giving you some sort of a thumbs up. Chatty V, what's up from your former assistant coach down in Florida.
What's up, Kevin?
Yeah, right on. So you decided to go to university, and you're looking at universities to go to. You end up going to SMU and playing for the Mustangs. What made you choose SMU?
Their assistant coach at the time, Kevin Hudson, he's a St. Louis native. So he was at a lot of my club soccer practices and tournaments, and I took a visit there. And I don't know if you've been there, but it's a beautiful campus and a great school, great town. So I fell in love with it when I took a visit there.
Yeah, I was speaking to the new coach for the Dallas Sidekicks, Eddie Puskarish, and he's an SMU alum as well. But you didn't stay there for the full 4 years. You ended up going back to St. Louis and playing and going to school at St. Louis University for the Billikens. What is it that made that happen?
Yeah, I think it was just, I enjoyed SMU. The team, I think when I came there as a freshman, they were ranked number 2. So they're a very, very big powerhouse, still are. But, I was playing and I was battling and right when I joined SMU, the head coach actually took the FC Dallas job in the MLS.
Oh, wow.
So, I just thought being closer to home, and I thought it would be a better fit for me playing wise. So no major decision. So I did 2 years there, and then I made the switch over to St. Louis University.
So you're getting noticed. I mean, when you're playing for St. Louis, I guess it had to be St. Louis. Atlantic 10 Conference All-Tournament team in 2010. Honorable mention for the Atlantic 10 Conference in 2011. So you're getting some notice. You're playing well, and people are noticing that you know what you're doing on the field.
Yeah. I guess so. And, we can even go a little further than that. Once I finished up at St. Louis U, I had some recognition and I was training and I wanted to play at the next level. Had a few combines, few tryouts with teams, and nothing really came of that. So I missed the outdoor season. So now you're just training, like what's next, I honestly didn't have much connection with the indoor as well either, because the St. Louis Ambush weren't even around at that time.
Right. So St. Louis Ambush kick in 2013. So there is that, like you say, there is that little sort of space between your college career and when you end up finally landing the spot with the St. Louis Ambush. And that was with the St. Louis Ambush of the MISL, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that was my first year when the Ambush first came. And that was, I guess, the last year of the MISL.
Right.
And yeah, like I said, I was bouncing around, doing some combines outdoor. And then all of a sudden the Ambush were announced, and it was kind of a local buzz around that. And I'm like, oh, I'll go to an open tryout. And Daryl Duran was the coach and offered me a contract.
Oh, nice.
Not much money, I won't lie. But I had to get my feet wet, right? And they had big crowds at the time. So I was super excited. I just wanted to compete again. It was about a year and a half, I actually had a job in between that. I don't know if my dog wants to do the interview with me or what, but yes.
My cat joins me every once in a while.
Yeah, well, she has a squeaky toy.
My cat jumps in with me every once in a while. Oh, is that what that is? Okay.
Yeah.
I can hear the squeaky toy. Now it's good to know what that is. I thought maybe it was a bad squeaky hinge on a door or something.
Yeah.
But it's a squeaky toy. Well, that's good. What kind of dog do you have?
Well, it's actually my brother's dog. So
Okay.
she's over here.
So, I mean, Daryl Duran.
I'll show you a little video. I'll show you a little video if she walks by. But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Daryl Duran is a St. Louis icon. I mean, in fact, when I was living in St. Louis and hanging out there, Daryl Duran was playing for the Steamers. I mean, I remember going and watching him play for the Steamers with Don Ebert and a bunch of those guys, Steve Petcher, and a bunch of those old school boys from the St. Louis Steamers days. And so that for you as a young man, Daryl Duran, you know who this guy is. I mean, you know his history, living in St. Louis, growing up in St. Louis, going on the field and having him trying out for him. That had to be kind of cool.
Yeah, obviously just growing up and playing. A lot of those guys that played, they're still in the St. Louis area, whether they're coaching or people know their names. So I was aware of him, and it was a cool experience. I think I even had like an autographed picture of him, like as a kid. So then it's kind of one of those full circle things. And then, so yeah, that was really cool.
So what, can you recall from your standpoint, from a player standpoint, can you recall some of your thoughts or feelings or concerns of what was going on with indoor soccer at the time that the MISL essentially folded and then got together with the PASL and formed the MASL, and when all that was going on, can you recall what your thoughts and feelings were about that?
So that was my first year and the last year, correct, of the MISL?
Yeah, I believe so.
So I can't really recall if I had many feelings or anything, because I knew that we were going to be playing the next season. I thought
That's right.
I honestly thought it was just a league name change, to be honest,
okay.
at the time.
Right, and from where you're sitting, it probably looked pretty seamless. I mean, you took the field and played during the season, and then the following season you took the field and played again, and the same organization was playing. You're still with the St. Louis Ambush. The Ambush made the transition somewhat seamlessly. So from your standpoint, it probably wasn't even a hiccup, huh?
It wasn't, and I do remember just the league being kind of smaller as far as number of teams in it, because there was another league. So, you'd play a lot of the same teams.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know what the reason was for that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the Soccers were in, there was a lot of competitive teams in the other league as well, which was what, the PASL?
Right. There were a few reasonably competitive teams. The San Diego Soccers were a good team at that time. The Chicago Mustang, I believe, had won the last PASL championship. A few years earlier, the Detroit Waza were pretty good, but by the time the MASL came in, they weren't taking the field with as much authority. The Dallas Sidekicks were an okay team until the MASL, and then again they were having some issues straight away. Because I mean, what happened when the MISL came in, when the MASL was formed, of course, the teams that came out of the MISL, all of them were well organized, well juiced, well rostered teams. In the PASL, there were only a few that actually could be that. I mean, the first year of the MASL, the PASL team from Montere, the Flash, won the first championship. But then, of course, for the next 3 years after that, the Baltimore Blast won 3 in a row. So, the MISL sort of had that dominant run. So you played for the St. Louis Ambush for a number of years. And hold on one second. I'm going to take a move here. So a Facebook user I want to talk to you. Big Dog is always hungry. I'm not exactly sure what Big Dog is always hungry means, Facebook user, but you could, if you want to identify yourself, you can go on to anybody who's watching. You guys can go on to the Study on Soccer broadcast on Facebook or the Study on Soccer YouTube channel. Typically, that will ID who you are, and you can. Big Dog is always hungry. That's
show your
funny.
face. They can show your face, right?
So, yeah. We get to know who you are, so we can jump you.
Exactly.
All right. So you read right. So you did do an outdoor stint with St. Louis FC for it looks like what a few games, 22 games or so.
Yeah, so I guess St. Louis FC, who played in the USL, United Soccer League, which is the second division outdoor, they announced that St. Louis was going to have a team. So I was like, okay, I'll try out, open tryout again. And then obviously after open tryouts, you have invite tryouts and this and that. So it's a long process sometimes. And I made that team. So, I went from not getting on a team after college to working for 8 months, open tryout for the Ambush, playing there a little bit, 2 seasons, then open tryouts for St. Louis FC, outdoor USL. And now I'm playing year round, indoor, outdoor, go back to indoor because I didn't know if St. Louis FC was going to pick up my option my second year. So I was like, I'll just keep playing. I'm still early 20s. And just with that year and a half, 2 years, things started with no break. I started having a little knee issue, this and that. So the 22 games were all from the first season. And then I went back there my second season, but I was unable to play. I had my knee scoped, and after that, it's I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a lot of professional outdoor career where teams were calling me. It was just the one season, and I missed the next season mainly because no break. So things are getting high, but then they start going down. Just like most athletes, you have your ups and downs. I'm not a rare case. But then after that, I get a call from Giuliano at Milwaukee.
Right. So you jump over to the Milwaukee Wave, and here's a team that you're familiar with. You've played against them a lot. You know this organization. You know what they've got going on. And that's kind of where you came onto my radar is when you were playing. I mean, I knew of you with the Ambush, but you really came onto my radar when while you were playing with the Milwaukee Wave. Maybe in part because of the successes that the team had. But at that point in time, how is this injury how's the knee doing?
At that time, the knee was better. I mean, I think I was off for almost a year. So at that time, I was just ready to play.
Good.
And when I got that call, I was excited. They have a great organization, the fans there, the players. My record against them wasn't so great. So, I was a captain on the Ambush. I didn't have much experience. A lot of our players were local. We didn't have I don't want to say we were all just happy to be there, but it wasn't that winning culture at that time. So yeah, when I joined Milwaukee, I think I learned more in that first year just about the game from the players and Coach Jules than I did for my first 3 seasons in St. Louis.
How did you gel with the roster, your teammates? How did you guys? Is there any? Can you think of any, like 2 or 3 maybe guys that were on that Milwaukee team that you really picked up a good tight relationship with on the field or off the field?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, most of them.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't have a group of 2 or 3. I mean, I really enjoyed all the guys, not only on the field but off the field as well. And at the time when I went there, we had a handful of guys. It was their first season as well. So I mean, I can just run down the list really quick, but like Daniel Chamale, Robert Renault, Andre Hain, Josh Lamos, myself, and there's probably a few more that we were all kind of just joining the team at the same time. So
wow.
It wasn't like I'm the new guy. There were a handful of us,
Nice.
and yeah.
So yeah, and along the way, you guys pick up a championship ring. Talk a little bit about that season.
2018-19. Did Montere knock out San Diego? I believe, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You're like, yes. So yeah, and it was so cool how it worked out. I think if San Diego to beat Monterey, we would have went to San Diego to play, but it ended up being a home game. So my first one, we get to have it at our home venue. Over 10,000 people, maybe. I don't know. There was a lot of people.
Yeah, I was there.
Okay. Yeah, and it Cinco de Mayo or around that, right?
I don't remember the date, but it was close. It was close to that. You know what? It might have been because I do remember that being that sort of festivity being in the air. So it may have been.
Yeah.
It may have been.
And
it was interesting that season.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say it was interesting that season because that was a single elimination season. So yes. there was no home and home mini game kind of setup that had been pretty popular before and since. But that year it was a one shot home game, win or lose, take it out kind of thing. I had actually expected a closer game than it was. It started off pretty close, pretty competitive, but Milwaukee just sort of got the buzz, got the gel, got the movements going on, and just sort of took it away in the second half.
Yeah. Yeah, we were just firing at the right time, late in the season, playoffs, the time you want to be playing your best soccer. We were healthy.
Right.
We had veterans with experience in those situations, those big games. We had younger guys who were aggressive and fast. We had just a perfect storm, if you will. So yeah, that was
right.
That was very special. And then everyone actually stayed the following year. A lot of us were free agents, and the organization ended up re-signing, I think, almost everybody, keeping the same team. And then that was the COVID year. So I think we had a strong team again, and we were going to go for it again. And then things got shut down later on in that next season.
Yeah, that was, I mean, I don't know. I was talking to Craig Childs a couple of days ago, and I asked him about that and how that shutdown affected the players and such. And I'm thinking it may have been more of not more. That's a rough word. I know from myself, it really broke my heart. I mean, it absolutely just broke my heart. I mean, we have a great season going on. It's not the middle of the season, man. It's towards the end. I mean, there might only be 3 or 4 more games left for each team when the whole thing shuts down. Everybody knows who the top teams are. Everybody pretty much has a clue, who's going to be playing who in the playoffs, and that playoff buzz is kind of getting going in the blood and all that. And then it just shuts down. Well,
Yeah.
the next thing that's kind of interesting is that COVID season, the next season, Milwaukee doesn't play. Baltimore doesn't play. A lot of St. Louis doesn't play. Kansas City plays, but a bunch of teams don't just choose not to play. But they send a lot of their players, their top players, out to other teams that are playing. Talk about how that affected you personally, that particular season.
I think I was out of contract after that season, so I actually signed with Florida. I wasn't one of the players contract going to a different team to play, so I was signed with Florida. Whereas like Ian, he was loaned out to Florida, and then Marcio to San Diego, and other players across the league. But I actually signed with Florida, so yeah, it was a blessing because I got to play that next season where some teams didn't, and not all the players had the opportunity to as well.
That's right. What it did, however, for the teams that did play, it really loaded up the rosters. I mean, there wasn't a shallow team in the bunch. Everybody was strong. It was a smaller gathering of clubs, but every team was strong. And that was, I think, the first year that Florida started really loading up and bringing in some heavy hitters on the roster, and of course making it to the playoffs, and then into Kansas City for that semifinals weekend with San Diego and Ontario and Kansas City and Florida. I was also there for that, and that was a real interesting deal.
You're everywhere.
I was. I mean, when the big games hit, man, I was going to go to Chihuahua last season, but yeah, I had the opportunity to go to Chihuahua for the finals last season, but I didn't make that one. But it was really exciting in Kansas City when that season came to a conclusion and the semifinals were being played. That was an outstanding weekend. It was full of excitement. Every single game was just a gut check, hardcore fight to the end, and just an outstanding match. Everybody was playing, but it had to be a little disappointing from the standpoint of the Florida Tropics, because as I recall, the Florida Tropics, Clay had the opportunity to pick who he wanted to play, and he chose to play the San Diego Sockers, who it kind of made sense because the Sockers had somewhat of a weak regular season, and just kind of barely making it through every team made the playoffs. If I recall right, every team made the playoffs that year, but by the time it got to the semifinals, there was the San Diego Sockers were, on paper anyway. I mean, when I say on paper, I don't mean the roster, I mean the standings, the weaker team. And
right.
And the outcome is history.
Yeah, I mean, what Ontario was there.
Can you talk a little bit of that? How did that go ahead?
Yeah, Ontario was there, and Kansas City. Obviously, Kansas City, they're playing at home, right? It's their home venue.
Right.
So it wasn't an easy decision. We had our, video sessions and our meetings, and we discussed, and Clay even let the players put their input in, and it was a tough decision, right? Like, there wasn't an easy decision, so we went with that one, and it didn't work out, but yeah.
Well, from the other thing that was interesting too is that I mean, I have to assume that anybody looking from the outside looking in saw the Kansas City Comets and the Florida Tropics as the likely teams to move on to the finals. That both the teams from Southern California were the underdogs going into that weekend. It was also interesting because if I remember correctly, no matter what the pairing was, unless it was both San Diego and Ontario, then the championship finals were going to be played in St. Louis, if I remember correctly. I mean, if it was San Diego and Kansas City, if it was Florida and Ontario, if it was Florida and Kansas City, then any of those combinations and the game was going to be played in St. Louis. And as it turned out, the only combination possible for it to be played in Southern California was what eventually happened that season. And then we have, and then we have the following season where we look at the Florida Tropics, man, just busting it up, going all the way through the season, through the playoffs. And then again, this time making it to the championship. Clay Roberts is just, doing an outstanding job as coach. You guys had a roster that was just stacked and playing well. Talk a little bit about how that season felt after you had lost that semifinal match. Give me a little bit of your gut. Give me a little bit of your heart and how that whole thing played out all the way to the end.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts. It hurts to get that far and then lose. Even like you said, like we picked who we wanted to play, and it didn't work out. But it's still better than not going far in a season. So yeah, it's a failure as reaching the ultimate goal, winning a championship, but you would take going to the semis and losing, or the finals and losing every season, because you're right there, and you can keep going forward and learn from those mistakes or what you did wrong, and grow. That's kind of like how it was in Milwaukee for me: semis, quarters, this, that, losing, finally win. And Florida, I felt like, I honestly think the COVID year we had a better chance of winning in Florida. But yeah, I mean, all the guys, like you said, there are so many great players there, and they're all competitors. So it hurt losing a final, but you gotta keep plugging away. Use it as motivation.
Right. I was, as you say, I'm everywhere. Because I can see how it seems like I'm everywhere. Because again, during that championship final, I was in Florida for the first.
Yeah, I remember seeing you there, speaking with you.
Right, and I think that was probably the first time that you and I actually formally got to meet each other. Was during that weekend of play down in Florida, and then the tournament comes back to San Diego. But I also recall, it was pretty interesting. I recall at the end of it all, when it was all said and done, in the parking lot, as everybody was leaving, the assistant coach Kevin Curtin, who had our chat a little earlier, he was out in the parking lot, and he and I got to know each other when he was assistant coach up in Ontario, and so we're friendly. We know each other. We're friends. And as we're walking out and the game is over, he saw me and he just leaned into me. I went to say hello. I wasn't trying to rub anything in or nothing. I was just saying hello, great to see you. And he just looked at me and he says, "We're coming for you."
That sounds about right. That sounds like him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And San Diego's been a great team, right? And obviously to play them at home, that's tough. I don't know. I saw something not too long ago just about their record at home. So, it's already a tough environment to play on their home turf. But
right.
yeah, they've been a powerhouse. It kind of comes in waves. I think Kansas City for a while when I first came in the league, Baltimore, then kind of Milwaukee, and there's always one or two teams, not just one, but it kind of comes in waves.
That's right. That's right. All right. So let's talk about first before we talk about what you got coming on in the future. You're now playing for the Kansas City Comets, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to get your heart as well with what went down in Florida and the Florida Tropics. There's one thing that I would like to know what your opinion of this is, because I'm a little confused. From where you're sitting, is your understanding that the Florida Tropics have folded, or that the Florida Tropics are in hiatus?
I don't know 100%, but
okay.
I would assume that they folded, but I don't know how that all works. Like if owners have the rights and they can join again or sell the team. So I'm not 100% on that. I don't know if the players, if they were like, I know players signed multiple deals or multiple years with other teams, including myself. So we were never told like, yeah, next year or 2 years, this is when we're joining again. Otherwise, maybe people would sign for 1 year. So,
right.
I kind of treated it like that personally. So
right. Well, I spoke with Drew Ruggles, and he signed with the San Diego Sockers for a 3-year contract. So, and for him, I would imagine for everybody, really. I mean,
did you hear he's cutting his hair? Did you hear that?
Newsflash.
Shit, yeah.
Really? No
Maybe.
way.
I don't know. I might be kidding. I might not. I don't know.
Newsflash. I mean, that's. Oh boy. Yeah, and for you, for him, for for the other players that were in Florida, I mean, a few of you guys had been there for a couple of years. I'm sure, probably had a place of residence. You'd moved there. You had family there, and whatnot. Those of you guys that have married and kids, the whole thing. And so now it's a rearrangement. Let me ask you something that was sort of in the conversations around, when, and by the way, my previous question was because I have seen in one publication that the Florida Tropics are in hiatus. Everything else that I have seen has said that the team has folded. And I too don't know what hiatus means anything more than what you had mentioned as to, the owner having rights and the ability to relaunch, sells whatever and however that plays out. But
yeah, and just real quick,
I lost my train of thought.
No, and just real quick, like I hope it's hiatus. I hope they come back. There's, like you said, a lot of players that can't just move to other teams. Very talented players that have families or other jobs or homes that aren't as flexible as myself or other people. So, I really feel for them, my friends, my teammates, coaching staffs, and then obviously all the loyal fans as well. They don't have a team to cheer for it in the MISL right now. So, I don't have a crystal ball, but I feel for them, and I hope that a team in Florida or around that area comes back into the league.
there was a conversation when the news sort of, I'll say, hit the fan, that
The
Florida
news hit the
was
fan. Is that the
not
saying?
going to compete. I just sort of made that up just now. But yeah, so what happened was a lot of conversation about what the best thing was for the players, and the options being free agency or a dispersal draft. And I think the basic consensus was that the best outcome for each individual player would be free agency, because that way they could have a better, chance of making a decision for themselves as to where they end up going, as opposed to a dispersal draft where they would have no options. What would you agree with that conclusion?
I would, yes, 100%.
Right. So now you've got Kansas City Comets. You're playing with a bunch of guys. I mean, the thing about this community, it's a pretty small community. I mean, you players know each other. I mean, you've played against each other multiple times. You have an idea of, how the team plays out, what the chemistry is on the team. Pretty much. I mean, it's not like you're walking into an old, it's not like an old shoe, but the idea that you guys are, aware of each other and have known each other before. How do you feel about that chemistry going into the Kansas City Comets for yourself?
As far as the chemistry that they have, or
Yes.
me joining, yeah, I think they have great chemistry. They work extremely hard. I'm excited about every aspect, to be honest, from the organization, the coaching staff. They're hungry. They're looking to improve each season. That's where I want to be, somewhere that wants to do that, not just complacent, So, yeah, I'm ready to get going. I know that there's a handful of the guys that live in the area, and they're all training. So that says a lot too. They're not just waiting till preseason officially starts when you get paid or whatnot. So that shows you that they're all bought in. And yeah, it's in this league, if you play for a while, I don't know, I'll be going into my 11th season, I think, but a lot of times your opponents become your teammates and your friends. So, which nothing wrong with that,
That's great.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Yeah. I've had probably almost every player reach out to me, and when it first happened, just saying kind things. So, they're like a family there, and I'm excited to get going and do what I can to help them.
So, are you gonna be doing the I-70 commute from St. Louis, or are you gonna be living in Kansas City?
Yeah, it's about 3 hours from where I'm at, but I will be living there during the season.
Okay,
I'm all in.
Was that? There you go. I'm all in. Okay, that answers my question. The question I was going to ask, because I mean, being from St. Louis, and I mean, I know, having lived there myself, I made that drive to Kansas City a few times back in the day, primarily to watch when the Sockers were playing the Comets. Generally when I would make the drive and go to Kansas City and watch them play at Kemper Arena? I think it was Kemper Arena back in the day, in Kansas City. But yeah, so and my brother lives in Overland Park on the Kansas side. So hopefully I'll be able to make a trip or two out to visit him during the season, and hit up Dahmer Arena for a game or two. I'm looking forward to possibly being able to do that. Now let me talk. I mean, there's not a lot we can talk at this point about the Comets with your stay there, because that hasn't happened yet. Like you say, you haven't, training hasn't happened yet. You haven't taken the field with the team yet. So the fact that you're there is pretty much the news. There you are, Chad Vandegriffe, Kansas City Comets. Let's get it going on. He's all in. Okay. Do you know if you're going to be part of the World Mini Football tournament going on next month?
So I don't know if they've officially released anything. I know they have a pool of players, and you know, a lot of those guys have been. We just had the game in California with the arena team, and I think a lot of those we had the game in Slovakia last year. So I think a lot of those players will be on that roster for the World Cup in Dubai. But as far as the specifics on the rosters, I don't know.
Okay. Are you? I mean, answer this if you can. Are you available if you're called up?
Yeah, I am available, and that's going to be an exciting event. So, you know, hopefully I'm a part of that.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, the last one in Australia was outstanding. I mean, it was kind of cool to see the MISL representation on the United States and the Mexico side, and watching Mexico take that championship was pretty fun. To see some of our, you know, MISL guys, you know, pulling that trophy down in San Diego, then in Australia. I had an opportunity shortly after that to interview the Mexican coach Rene Ortiz, who of course you know is the assistant coach in San Diego, and it was really cool because he came to the interview with this big white box. It was this big white wooden hinged, locked, latched box, and we sit down and we start doing this interview. And about halfway through the interview, he opens up the box and he picks up this 3-foot tall trophy and puts it on my little fold out.
Yeah.
This giant green and gold trophy he pulls out for winning the World Cup. So it was pretty exciting for him to. So that was a complete surprise. You know, he brought a guest. He says, "I brought a guest," and he opens up this box and pulls the trophy out. So that was pretty good. I mean, I'd like to see some kind of a return like the first World Cup was in 2015, where the games were all played here in the United States with MISL boards and that kind of thing. It would really be cool to see that. But in lieu of
you have the mini football, like the outdoor that we were talking about, that the World Cup coming up that's going to be in Dubai, and then Slovakia. So that was no boards, but there's also the arena U.S. team. So yeah, hopefully there is like a World Cup, and I think there are some plans for that in the near future. So they're kind of separate, but they're kind of hand in hand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I know if you look up the history of the World Mini Football World Cup, the first one that is listed is 2015 in the United States, which was played MISL indoor soccer style. The next one is the one that was played in Tunisia, and that was outdoors. And then Australia was outdoors, and then Dubai is going to be outdoors. So it almost seems like the only time it's going to be indoors is if it's hosted in the United States. But
it might be. I don't know. It might be. I'm not going on the record saying anything, but it might be.
Okay, that was a good one too. I like your little. I'm not going to say, but I'm gonna drop a little hint by not saying. That's very good.
Yeah, and just like as far as the World Cup stuff, there's going to be stuff released coming very shortly that the team's going to start putting out, whether that's rosters and all that. So that should be coming out soon.
All right. Well, Chad, it's really good talking to you, my friend. I appreciate you setting this up with me so far in advance, because I mean, we set this up probably a week and a half ahead of time.
Oh, I'm not that busy. Just call me. I think you were just being nice, being flexible and all that. So
Well, the truth is I wasn't being that nice because the truth is I had so much already planned. I've got the same thing going on right now. All next week, I've got 4 interviews next week that I've got set up and planned. I got contacted yesterday. I'll throw this out there so people see it coming. But I talked with Sean Bowers, the Sockers general manager, yesterday, and we're going to set something up with him. And I would love to have him on next week, but I'm full next week. So we got to do the same thing with Shan that you and I did, and set up an opportunity to get together. And your flexibility is thankful, and I appreciate it. Mine was the problem. And
no,
so
but it's good. It's good that you're busy though. It's good. And like, I don't know. I think it's awesome that you're doing all these interviews and just everything positive for the league. It helps. I think the league's growing. I think people,
right,
when they go to games, they want to go back to games.
Absolutely.
And that's good. And I see you sharing things and posting things from the past, and it's just good all around. Awesome stuff from you. So keep that up.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. And this series of interviews that I'm doing right now, and as far as I can see into the near future anyway, is all about the fans getting to know the players and principals and people that are involved in the major arena soccer league. I mean, it's one thing to know, oh, I remember Chad. He used to play for the Milwaukee Wave, didn't he? Oh yeah, he was on the Florida Tropics too. That's so cool to see him here coming to Kansas City now. But if that's all they know, that's good. But what I want them to know is a little bit more about you. You know, where you got started, what you've done, what your history is, some of your feelings, some of what you think about things that are going on. I know I try to walk over sort of eggshells with those questions because I realize that some people can only say what they can say, not necessarily what they know. And so there's that. And I try to make it clear, you know, that I'm not trying to pull teeth. But if there's anything out there, that you know what I mean? If there's anything out there that you can say that you know, I'll sort of dance around the question, and if it can come out, then it can come out. And so people learn about what you are, who you are, and where you come from. And that's kind of my angle, what I'm trying to do. There's so many other people that are doing podcasts, and I appreciate all of them because they all have their little niche and what they're doing and who they're talking to and what they're talking about. And I think that's only good for the sport. I think the most frustrating thing for me is the attempt to reach people that aren't already fans. I mean, it's one thing to talk to people who, you know, to reach people that are fans, but I want to be able to introduce this sport to people that aren't already fans. It's like you just said, if you're a sports fan, if you're a fan of athletic competition, and you go to an indoor soccer game, you're going back. You know, it's
100%.
And it doesn't even really matter which game you go to. Right. It doesn't even matter which game you go to. You might want to go to, I mean, it might be fun if you go to one that goes overtime and, you know, back and forth leads and all that kind of thing. But
how close were all the games, though? How close were, like, 90% of the games last season and the season, like, just so close all the way down to the last few minutes?
Yep.
I mean, you can't even blink. Like, sometimes I watch a lot of the games as a player, the games that I'm not playing in, and I'm just like, I don't know. And I'm on the edge of my seat sometimes. Like, it's not
right.
I mean, they're down to the last few minutes. It's not 20 minutes left in the game. You know who's going to win. It's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And even when, and what's really funny is even when you think you might already know who's going to win because the score is 5-2,
right,
at the beginning of the fourth quarter, it's 5-2 at the beginning of the fourth quarter. You think, okay, I know these guys have got it, but then some adjustment is made on the other team, or some injury takes place on the team that's losing or that's winning, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the final score is 6-5, and it's the other team that won, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That's, I would say that person hasn't been to a ton of indoor games if they think somebody's going to win, right? If it's a 2-3 goal difference, because
right,
people can come back from that all the time.
I mentioned my brother in Overland Park, and he's a big sports fan. He's an alum from USC.
Does he go to the Comets games?
Well, he has. I don't think he goes on a regular basis. He goes to.
All right. Well, tell him to check will call. Tell him to check will call.
Okay.
I'm gonna put tickets in there for him. KC Comets.
Okay. I'll tell him that.
Yeah.
He went with me a couple of times. He's gone to the games. He was at the All-Star game and that first MASL, so far the only MASL All-Star game. He and I went to that game together. Danny Waltman. Yeah, it was pretty funny too because Danny Waltman got the MVP, I think it was, of that game, and my brother's sitting up there watching the game and he's going, Danny Waltman is going to get the MVP. This is like at the end of the third quarter. And he's going, Danny Waltman is going to get the MVP of this game. That guy is standing on his head, and he's the MVP of the game. And as it turned out, that's exactly what happened.
That's
and
cool.
he got it.
Yeah, and I hope they do. I hope they do that again.
I hope they do it again
All-Star
too.
game.
Rich has come. My brother Rich is his name, and Rich has come to many games in San Diego with me also. So I mean, he's very familiar. He watches the games on Twitch. He watches them on YouTube wherever they're being broadcast. So he's very familiar and follows the sport. But it's interesting when you have somebody or know somebody that you really, like we said earlier, you really can't walk away from the game once you experience the sport. You really can't. It's if you're a sports fan, if you're just somebody that's going out on an evening thing to do something different and you really aren't into athletics and whatever, then of course it is what it is. But if you're a fan of athletic competition, man, the MASL is the American indoor soccer is just an outstanding sport. And I'm excited about what's going on in Kansas City, a couple of other locations, because whatever the marketing is, what's ever going on is going on right because the fans are showing up in that city.
They are. I don't know. I know Brian Roth from back in my St. Louis Ambush days, but he's doing a great job there. Bud, now Stefan. Yeah. I mean, Stefan's hungry as a coach, and he, we've had great talks. Yeah, so just seems like there's a lot of great guys who want to keep doing better and keep building and keep. Yeah, I mean, all at the same time as being a close family. So. Not too much longer before I'm going to be there and in that culture.
Well, I've kept you for a little bit over an hour. Chad, thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate talking to you. Yeah, I really I mean, one of the things I said a minute ago about these things helping fans get to know the players, well, I can't lie. It helps me get to know you guys too. And I really appreciate that. It forms a relationship, and I think that's solid all the way through. I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the field, and hopefully I can catch you at a home game. We don't even know what the schedule is. Of course, I'll see you and say hi if you come to San Diego. But if I can get to Kansas City, I'll definitely make sure that we make contact together. Thanks very much, Chad Vandegriffe, Kansas City Comets Defender. Thank you very much for joining me, buddy.
Thank you. See you in the season.